So good morning, everyone. Let's start our webinar talking about the migration from SAP WM to SAP EWM and its different strategies. So it's very nice to be able to share this information with all of you. For me, it's a pleasure, and I hope we can bring some valuable information for all of you. Feel free to put your questions in the Q&A section of the Zoom interface so that we can answer them by the end of the webinar, right? So a quick presentation from myself. I am Daniel Zardo. I am the head of consulting here in LogiPlus. I work with SAP since 2011. Since then, working as a consultant, project manager, solution architect, and also pre-sales architect. I'm here at LogiPlus since last year. I come from Brazil. And here I take care of the consulting team, also manage some projects and other activities. So I would like to thank you for coming up to our webinar, and I hope we can have a nice time together in the next hour so that we can exchange some information and experiences and so on. For our agenda today, we have 6 main points. We will give a quick introduction of LogiPlus for some of you who still doesn't know about us. We will talk about why should we consider migrating to SAP EWM, how it is important to have in this kind of project also a logistics mindset. We will talk a little bit about our methodology, how this methodology can improve the delivery of the projects or can ensure that we have a successful project. Also, which projects or the amount of projects related to this kind of migration we have done, and some key takeaways in the end, right? So what about LogiPlus? Well, LogiPlus has plus 75 experts in logistics. Basically, we are specialized in EWM. So we work specifically with logistics processes. Most importantly, we work with EWM, of course, also with WM and its interfaces with ERP. And also we have a strong specialization on MFS. We have been founded in 1999 by former SAP employees, and we have more than 25 years of experience in this kind of project, in warehouse projects, in intralogistics, right? Here we have some of our customers ranging from different industries, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, automotive, and so on. So we have a strong knowledge on how to implement the solutions on these different kind of industries and all the particularities that each kind of industry brings to the table when we have to consider on how to do this kind of projects, right? So this makes us very capable of talking about implementation of EWM, migration from WM to EWM, and so on. So which are our goals for this presentation? The idea is for us to talk about 3 main pillars for a successful project, for a successful migration, leaving WM solution in direction to EWM. So of course, we have to discuss the scope of the solution. What can EWM bring in addition to what we already have in SAP WM? Also, how this logistics mindset, how thinking about the business process optimization and so on, how this can make a difference in addition to the technical scope, and also how can we bring our expertise in terms of methodology or how to manage those projects in order to have the best outcome possible, right? So these are the main ideas that we will be navigating today. And inside of each one of these blocks, then we will discuss much more details, right? So to start, why should we even consider adopting SAP EWM? First of all, let's discuss some trends inside the logistics world, or more specifically inside the intralogistics. What are the things that the market or the supply chain is looking ahead for the future, and why are these trends important in relation to the solution itself? So first of all, we have seen, of course, and not from yesterday, but from already a good years in the past, the increasing of automation inside the warehouse. Also, the increasing importance of the value added service of why we have to consider that we have a big infrastructure, we have a lot of manpower inside the warehouse. How can we optimize the usage of these assets to bring more value to the business process? The use of artificial intelligence for optimization of the warehouse. This is a big trend this year specifically. Shorter cycles for order fulfillment. The speed of the supply chain is higher and higher over the years. A deeper integration between transport management, courier processes, along with the processes inside the warehouse, because of course the visibility is much more needed. The customers who are buying, they want to know when they will receive the deliveries, when they will have the material at their doors. And this customer can be a B2B, B2C, and so on. But nevertheless, it's very important to have this kind of integration. Also, the steady movement towards Industry 4.0 with automation, robotization, and many other aspects that we will discuss also a little bit more later. How can we maintain traceability inside the warehouse, the materials which are coming from our vendors, the batches, the serial numbers, how can we keep tracing them through the supply chain? Also, how can we be resilient? How can we be able to absorb the shocks that come from the differences on the processes, on the supply deadlines, and so on? So this comes to a resilient supply chain, which demands for more and more integration through this chain of processes. And a massive adoption of cloud solutions and cloud mindset. This is not valid only for SAP. All the other platforms, they are also moving steadily towards the cloud. So it may bring some thoughts to our minds on how can we consider the landscape of our projects in the future, considering also cloud. And also, very importantly, how can we have the real-time data? How can we measure our processes inside the warehouse to have insights over them? So all of these points are very important. On these days, they are more or less valid to some specific customers. Some of them are purchasing some of these points with more strength than others. But nevertheless, all of them are important, so that we have in mind the tendencies that we should also be thinking about for the future of our business. Having this in mind, we go to the next slide, where we think about the dichotomy, right? The two sides of staying in SAP WM in comparison to move away to a new solution. So staying today in WM, it poses a challenge because in the end, we have growth limitations. We have operational challenges with WM. Of course, this kind of problem or this kind of challenge. It can vary from customer to customer, from business to business, but overall, when we are talking about a solution which is already reaching its end of the life cycle, we start to reaching the full potential of this solution. And then we have to consider on how can we unlock additional business value. And usually, if we think about EWM, we can really have a lot of business value in addition to what we do, because it's a different solution. We will talk about later on. It's a different line code, is not the same line code from WM. It's a totally different designed line of code inside SAP. So we will talk about also that in terms of business scope. Still, on the challenge about keeping the track of using WM, we have some challenges, right? So we have limited functionality. This limited functionality sometimes challenges how can we support the operation inside the warehouse? How can we add new business processes? How can we expand the operation, both in terms of processes, but also in terms of volume and performance of the systems and so on. The scalability is very related to this first point. So how can we grow? How can we expand all of our business if we have the system sometimes limiting us? And this is something we actually see in many customers. They are already exploiting 100% of the solution, and then they are reaching some additional challenges because they have to develop more, they have higher costs to make the solution running. Many times we also have to deal with complexity in terms of specific scenarios, cross-docking, wave picking, managing hazardous materials, and something like that. So very different sets of complexity handling, which are limited on WM. Also integration. Of course, we can integrate, we can use iDoc, we can use a middleware and so on. But nevertheless, we are still talking about a solution with more than 20 years of existence, which doesn't receive new developments and new functionalities over the time already. Also, the adaptability, still related to all the previous points. It's hard for us to change the process, to bring new process. We are living this in some of our customers, which are having a not so easy time to implement a process that in EWM would have been much more simple, much more quicker. No real-time visibility. So we are not running on S/4HANA. Of course, we could be running WM platform embedded on S/4HANA if you are talking about a migration, a full brownfield. But in most of the cases, we are running WM both on ECC, SAP ECC, or the central is still on the old platform. So it doesn't bring so much of real-time visibility as we can have, or it doesn't bring real-time visibility as we have on SAP EWM S/4HANA. Also, regulatory compliance, some specific needs from specific industries is hard to treat on WM. And I would say the most important of the challenges is the end of support. So we are already reaching 2027 in the next years. We have to start thinking about how we will lead our business in terms of the end of support of WM by 2027. It was already extended. This deadline was originally planned for 2025, and now we have it by 2027. So it's, I would say, one of the most critical pain points to be addressed. So touching on the pain points, of course, what our business, as it runs, we always have to consider which are the points that we should improve it, which are the pains that we have on our daily operation. And the pains can be divided in two main blocks. We have the push pain points, which are usually the most critical ones, like the software availability here, which we just discussed. So in this case, we have the software not being available anymore, the support by 2027. So it by itself, it already brings or it pushes the business to take a decision. But also we have the pull pain points. Usually these are the best problems to deal with, because then here we have many opportunities. We can improve our service level. We can improve our efficiency and transparency, the functionality, the better usability for the end user, for the operator of the warehouse, and so on. So how can we identify both sides of this equation to bring these pain points to the awareness of the business? So this is very important. We can also help the customers with the identification of these pain points, going to your warehouse, discussing your processes, and identifying them along with you and your users, so that we can have a real and good map of these pain points. Usually, this alone can bring a lot of awareness about the need for this project. So we can sometimes approve the project only by identifying all of these pain points, which can be very important for the business in terms of opportunities as well, right? So in this point of the presentation, we would like to do a quick poll with this question: do you have plans to move from WM to EWM in the future? We see that some of you have plans to move very quickly within the next 6 months, but yeah, as expected, most of our answers lie after 6 months to 2 years, and then we have a different distribution. Thank you so much for your answers. Let's move on to our presentation. So, considered the challenges from WM, what can EWM can bring to the table initially in terms of the scope? Of course, again, let's talk about the life cycle of the solution. So here we have WM being created in the beginning of 1990s, and it has for sure reached its potential. It has delivered a lot of value to the customers over the years, but it's reaching its end by 2027. Also, we have, in addition to that, we have SAP Stockroom Management that we will discuss also in the next slide. What is SAP Stockroom Management? What can we do about it, or how can it bring some alternatives for us? We will talk about it. And in the upper part, we have EWM. So the first version of EWM was the SCM platform, or NetWeaver platform, running on the central implementation. So it was created on 2005, more or less, and it's also been reaching its end of the life cycle in the same year, 2027. It doesn't mean that EWM doesn't have a perspective for the future. Totally in the contrary, because now the new platform of EWM already runs on SAP S/4HANA platform. So this new solution is quite new, actually. The first version of SAP EWM on S/4HANA is from 2017, and it has a lot of continuity and stability planned for the future in terms of what SAP plans to deliver for this solution, in terms of roadmap, new developments, new functionalities, and continuous innovation. That was the word I was trying to remember. So we have a big plan for the future. EWM is the main solution from SAP in terms of warehouse management, right? So now looking for the scope. On WM, we have, as discussed, a fixed scope which doesn't receive much of doesn't receive new functionalities and innovation already for some years. But when we move to EWM, on top of all of these functionalities, so you will not lose anything from here, but on top of this, you have a lot of new functionalities, new innovation, a lot that can bring to the business a fresh breath in terms of a new way of thinking about the operation inside the warehouse. We will talk about this shift between one way of doing things in warehouse management in WM and another way of doing things in EWM. And still on top of the EWM solution, we have LogiPlus add-ons, which run on also an SAP standard, taking advantage of all these big platform of functionalities from EWM. Very importantly, also, we have the LP-powered EWM, which is basically a rapid deployment solution where we, over the years, have continuously brought our knowledge inside the LP-powered. Basically, is a full EWM deployment which we can bring to the business, we can activate in some few days, and it's already running. So we will discuss this alternative also later on the project alternatives, but it's very important that everything that we have here, we have as SAP EWM in the center, bringing a lot in terms of new functionalities and new ways of doing things in comparison to SAP WM. Right? Okay, we talked about scope. And what about stockroom management? What is stockroom management? Basically, we have the same line code, exactly the same code or exactly the same functionalities that we have on WM brought inside SAP S/4HANA as stockroom management. It is basically only available inside S/4HANA as embedded implementation. So I cannot have, for instance, the central implementation of SAP Stockroom Management. And the same way as SAP WM, we don't have an innovation roadmap for stockroom management. It's basically to fit some customers who has a very simple operation, which SAP WM sometimes already deliver what's needed in terms of warehouse needs, and then they can move to SAP Stockroom Management. Also, very importantly, in comparison to WM, it has a reduced scope. So those functionalities here, we will not go one by one, of course, but they are not available inside Stockroom Management. So this is a very divergence in the way that we operate. So if SAP WM is already reaching the full potential, or we have already many pain points in your business because of using SAP WM, or we need to explore new functionalities, most likely a stockroom management will not fit your needs, right? Then, okay, we spoke about the main points. So far, if you have some questions, please write it down on the Q&A session of Zoom so that we can also reply to you in the end. So feel free to write it down there so we don't lose track of your doubts. It's very important that we can discuss it later on. Okay. In terms of magnitude and complexity, here we have a comparison. On the left side, we have the different deployment solutions. We have STRM, being smaller in size, of course. Then we move to WM, EWM Basic, which is basically the line code of EWM, which can cover WM functionalities, but with no additional licensing. And we have the advanced license of EWM with the full potential of utilizing all the functionalities. Here on the right side, we have the how can we apply those solutions in terms of our warehouse? So for smaller warehouses and less complex, we can keep using STRM and warehouse management, but as our business grows in size and also in complexity, we move towards the EWM in its different implementation flavors. So basic, again, advanced, or decentral. So basic S4HANA, it's only inside SAP S4HANA platform. So basic EWM is only inside S4HANA. The advanced also, it's inside S4HANA as an embedded solution in the ERP. And we have the decentral EWM, which has its own environment, its own installation, and it brings even more power to the operation, because then we decouple the operation from the ERP to the warehouse. We have two different systems running. Of course, they are intimately connected, but still they are not the same system. So if we need to do some maintenance on the S4HANA, on the ERP platform, we don't have to stop our warehouse operation because of that, for instance. Okay. And again, as I talked before, we have a very different paradigm when operating in EWM. So warehouse management is a positional stock accounting system. So basically, we take care of the movements from point A to point B. And we also take care about how much stock we have in each one of the positions inside the warehouse. So basically, this is more or less a reactive operation, and the functionalities, they are isolated. They are not so integrated as we have in EWM. On the other side, EWM doesn't take care so much of the accounting of the stock on the positions, but it also take care of how we execute the operations inside the warehouse, how we move the material, all the sub-steps between point A to point B. So it makes all the difference, because it allows us to be intimately connected with the material flow systems, with automation, and so on. So here we have the cloud, the robotics, automation ready, the mobile RFID, voice speaking, augmented reality, and of course, I would say one of the most important points, the optimization and flexibility. So we can really execute the processes in very, very different ways using SAP standard EWM. So it brings a lot of flexibility. Yeah. So here is still some more highlights. So we could spend one full day just talking about specific functionalities inside the EWM solution, but we will talk about 6 of them, which are important to different landscapes. The first of them is the mobile RF functionalities. So we can do we can use serial number picking, for instance. We can map the workplace activities with the RF functions. We can do storage and inventory ad hoc and real-time operations using the RF. And everything that we do on the RF transactions, we can use the standard. But not only that, we have our own add-on, which is an industry browser, which runs over SAP ETS. Using ABAP platform, we can have still better customized screens for the users operating on the RF platform. So it can be very important as well in the way that we optimize the operation inside the warehouse, because, of course, we can consider different screens. We can optimize the screens. Of course, SAP already delivers its flavors or delivers a lot in the standard, but here we have still an additional layer of optimization on top of our RF standard functionalities. Right. Moving on, very importantly, we have the MFS integration material flow system inside EWM, and with that we can control many topics related to the industry 4.0. For instance, warehouse automation, connected devices, robotics platforms, hands-free picking, and so on. And for that, SAP already has a large ecosystem of partners where we can already go straight and connect those systems using MFS and controlling the way the flow of material goes on inside the warehouse. So this, as I said, is part already of EWM to control the assets, to control the conveyors, and so on. It has a direct communication between SAP and the PLC via Telegram or web service. No need for an external middleware, SAP PI, PO, or any other. We can connect directly. Of course, it stays under the definitions of the infra of the company, but nevertheless, it can be connected directly to still better performance. We have a very granular control of the handling units inside the warehouse, how they move, in which layout, also based on the processes. So we can have then direct connection, as I said, to partially or fully automated storage systems. And of course, all of these together, they bring a lot of opportunity in terms of cost reduction, increasing on transparency and flexibility. The next point, transport process integration. So we have a native integration for with SAP Yard Logistics, where we can control the disposition of the transport units in our yard, if that's important for your business. Also a native integration with the transportation management system in all of these new versions. And of course, those two functionalities, they converge to SAP EWM seamlessly because it's a native integration from SAP, very robust and performatic. Resource management. So here we have the detailed planning of the shop floor resources, so we can really plan how we deploy our resources in the shop floor. How can we better optimize the usage of the forklifts, how the operators go in and go out on the flows inside the warehouse, which queues we can distribute in different queues in any way your warehouse operation needs. So we have the complete insight of the teams and employees' productivity, and of course, the holistic view of the warehouse from inbound to outbound. So this is very important because we can see how everything is moving through the monitors, through the standard monitors, and also through the usage of our add-ons as well, right? Product integration for the customers who have a warehouse which supplies a production plant, for instance, or which also receives material from the production line. So we have an enhanced integration of SAP ERP production process to EWM. This is unfortunately not available. This advanced integration is not available for STRM. So as we said before, it's a smaller scope. We also have standard integration with SAP MES, the manufacturing execution system, which deals with the very granular planning of the production orders inside the production lines. We also have the opportunity here to optimize the storage and the material provision of the production orders. So everything is very tied together in a way that we can really improve the throughput of the processes, right? Layout and process-oriented setup. So this is very, very interesting new functionality in comparison to WM that we have on EWM, where we have then the possibility to control not only, as I said, the movement from A to B, but all the sub-steps. So we can really influence via layout-oriented storage control how the material flows physically. And this is very important for the automation also. And also we can control how we process complex inbound and outbound movements with very specific sub-steps in between. So we can control these complex processes using process-oriented storage control as well. So it's two different approaches which bring a lot of power to the warehouse operation in terms of how we can implement those processes, how we have many ways of doing that, and many opportunities to really bring flexibility to the business. Of course, we can consider with that the use of the travel time and activity areas to determine the expected operating time for one specific picking or put away order, for instance. We can map those processes also for the material flow in real time, so we can know in which one of the sub-steps we are operating in that specific time for that specific order inside the warehouse. And we have, of course, a very flexible response to the conditions in the warehouse based on those functionalities. So once we spoke about the highlights of the solution, now we will talk about the different possibilities in terms of implementation. So how can we go forward and implement SAP EWM? So here we have the traditional EWM 9.5, which is the previous version, which is not an option for the future projects anymore. Then we have EWM embedded in S/4HANA. So it runs inside the same system. And basically here we have the basic possibility. So we have no additional licenses and the advanced possibility as well. We have the decentral implementation where it runs on S/4HANA platform, but also connected for both an SAP ECC or an SAP S/4HANA ERP, right? Also, moving to the cloud, then we have the same possibility of having the extended edition, basically the same, the central option, but running on the cloud. It can be connected the same way to an SAP S/4HANA ERP or SCC. Also, here we have the in-stack, basically is the same scope as the embedded EWM on the cloud. So this is already running SAP S/4HANA in the cloud ERP with the embedded option of EWM. And in the end, we have the Cloud Essential version where we have a shared environment between several customers. So it has to be very specific scenario where we can consider if you can or cannot use this kind of implementation, because ultimately you are sharing the same system with several customers using that environment. So here's some differences between decentral and embedded. They have basically the almost identical common core. So with some differences in the decentral option, with providing additional competencies to the business in terms of more volume possibilities is also, I mentioned before, it's decoupled from the ERP operation. So it brings a lot, brings more functionality to the table as well. Here we have the differences between the basic warehouse management and the advanced warehouse management. Basically, if we want to move to the basic without adding so much more functionalities from what we already use in WM, so we just want to move from WM, not adding so many new or advanced functionalities, we could also consider using the basic warehouse management implementation embedded on S/4HANA. You can also take a look on the roadmap planned from SAP in terms of new functionalities for EWM over the time. So this information is available on the internet. You can check later on SAP Roadmap Explorer. And in the end, some benefits that SAP brings in terms of to the business. Most of them, we already spoke about it. So higher customer service, standardization, inventory and labor costs, transparency, flexibility, and so on, and some numbers that SAP provides, some benchmark numbers. So 48% lower customer order cycle, 40% improvement in picking rates, 50% improvement on warehouse performance, and 6% more orders shipped on time. Just some numbers for us to have in mind that we can really have good or many pain points that are pulling the business for us to consider a new implementation. Now we do the second question. Which type of WMS deployment are you currently running? So most of you are running inside ECC as embedded solution. Some of you are already running embedded on S/4HANA. So some of you already did the migration or a brownfield from ECC to S/4HANA, also some in the central and others. Thank you, Christian. So let's continue. Our time is running short. So now we talk about logistics mindset. So how can we consider, along with the different approaches, the opportunity to bring the logistics mindset? One of the big opportunities is to use our LP-powered EWM, because using this, we can really make a very, very quick transition between WM to EWM. So we already had cases using LP-powered with just 3 months of implementation project. So conversion of all the solutions, so on, to EWM. So when we talk about LP-powered EWM, we are still talking about SAP EWM, S/4HANA, right? But with our rapid deployment solution on top, with all of many processes pre-configured and ready to run. We will talk a little bit more later on about these opportunities in terms of using LP-powered. As I said, it's already a prototype, 100% ready to run and using EWM. In addition to that, we can apply the logistics mindset during the project. So we can use quick wins through the quick introduction, because we have already a running system in your hands since the beginning of the project. We can easily identify the differences between what we have in the product and what we still have to adjust for your process. So we can really map many quick wins to quick introduction. We can still optimize your business process based on the difference, what we still have to do inside EWM on top of the LP-powered. Of course, we must, as much as possible, to sanitize and optimize the usage of the master data you have, make it even better on the new system. With that, we can also improve already from scratch your stock accuracy on the positions. We can refactor, or even better, we can eliminate many of the old developments you have on WM, and we can review the physical process. Sometimes this is not so much possible. It depends from project to project, but still, it's a good opportunity. And in the end, we should aim to reduce the project costs and time, because we are providing already our full running solution. And again, we have two different project approaches here. We can go for the standard project approach, where we will implement or we will migrate your warehouse management to EWM using specifically the process, the best practices from SAP. And then we have, in the first approach, we have to prepare the environment and prepare the project and do the system deployment, and then we do the rest of the project. Here in below, we have the same phases basically, but here our system deployment is shorter, and our each one of those phases are shorter because you already have the running solution. Nevertheless, there are two alternatives, but we can evaluate case by case when they are relevant. Still, a big difference between those approaches is even though we apply the best practice from SAP here on the baseline in the systems deployment, so we already have also a running solution in the beginning of the project, but the best practice from SAP, they have more general processes where we still have to iterate over and discuss more in order to find the fit gap analysis, or which are the differences, which are the gaps that we still have to implement in your process to make adherent to your business. So this takes more time, right? And here on the below part, on the LP powered approach, this discussion already starts with a full implemented, with a very advanced business process already running inside LP powered. So it brings awareness to the business process already much earlier in the process. And with that, we can have a learning curve much more steep here in the beginning, which bring a potential time savings to time, a very big potential time savings for the project, right? So of course, sometimes you may still find it interesting to go with the standard approach. It has to be fine-tuned and tailored by the necessity of each one of the customers, right? Once we spoke about the approaches in terms of standard approach, LP powered approach, then we can also consider how, if we do a local project or if we do a rollout strategy based on the different warehouses in your organizational structure, and also if we do a brownfield or if we do a greenfield, right? First of all, let's talk about the difference between local and rollout. In a local project, we have to implement everything from scratch since the beginning. Each warehouse is a new implementation, basically. We don't have so many cross-warehouse standards defined. And of course, if you have more than one warehouse and you want to implement EWM in all of them, in this strategy, usually the implementation costs are higher. On the rollout, on the other hand, we have different warehouses in our landscape. But how can we consider if a rollout strategy is suitable? Well, we can consider this matrix where we have the location autonomy in one axle here and the different processes in another axle. So the biggest potential for us to create a template is in this first quadrant, where we have low autonomy of that specific warehouses and not so many different processes between the different warehouses. So we can really have a standard process that we can plot from one warehouse to the other. On the other scenarios, here we have a medium template suitability where we have a big autonomy for the different warehouses, so they can choose different ways of how to execute the process. Or on the other hand, we also have different processes in between the warehouses. Yeah. Nevertheless, we can still think about and tailor a strategy for that. So here we have a sample scenario where we have sequenced rollouts. First, we do a phase one, building the template for one pilot project. We choose one of the warehouses inside the organizational structure, which could be a good fit for this first phase. And then we do the pilot, we create the template, and then we do the following rollouts. For each one of those rollouts, we collect the lessons learned with the participation of the users and all the teams, and also we collect the local requirements, which of the process that may differ maybe different from location to the other. And with that, every time we iterate over these rollouts, we should have incremental synergy over time, of course. We have a template that we are plotting over each one of those locations. So we will increment the synergy based on the lessons learned from the previous projects. And we should have less and less new requirements over time, because then the delta keeps getting smaller if you have similar warehouses that you must use the template. So this is, of course, not written in stone. We have to sit down together and map which would be the best approach for your scenario. On the other hand, we also have the greenfield and brownfield approach. So on the greenfield side, we have a really good opportunity to completely review the processes. We can be based strongly on the SAP best practices, both using LP powered or not, because LP powered still uses a lot of SAP standard. We can have the adaptation of the physical process and warehouse infrastructure, so we can merge the other pain points that you have, and also use this as an opportunity to change the physical process. And this approach can be applied to any of the implementation options that we discussed before. So because we are going for greenfield, we are having a new system. Of course, we can do a greenfield in each one of those scenarios. On the other hand, we have the brownfield, where we do the extensive adoption of the WM processes. Why we are adopting them? It has to, we have to have really good reasons to adopt them. But of course, if every business is different, so you may have your reasons to adopt the processes from WM. Also, we can adopt and adapt the developments from WM to your EWM, depending on your needs. Usually, this kind of project is tied to a top-to-bottom overall project strategy. For instance, you are migrating your ECC, you are using your SAP WM embedded in your ECC, and you will do the full conversion. So this is basically the pure brownfield scenario, where we convert all the system, both ECC and WM, to your new platform as for HANA. But of course, we can still fine-tune, or we can still tailor a different strategy for migrating specific points from your WM to EWM, considering point to point, right? So once we spoke about the methodology, about the solution and the mindset that we can apply over the processes, we will very quickly talk about the methodology. So basically, we use the activate. We select within the activate specific activities, specific deliverables, and then we do the adaptation of the activate-based methodology to our reality, to our warehouse operation reality, right? And we use 3 pillars, basically. We take care of the people, user-friendly solutions, and robust documentation, because this will enhance the knowledge over the users, over the teams, so they can use this in the future. We bring the awareness to the process, not only talking about the technical side, but also taking care of the business processes. And also we enhance what SAP deliver with some specific add-ons, which can bring additional productivity and functionality. We use the same SAP activate phases, and then we go one by one. On the discovery, basically, we decide which architecture we go to, which is the deployment solution that we already discussed, and which kind of project that we want to execute, rollout or not, greenfield, brownfield, standard, or rapid deployment, right? Then on the prepare phase, basically we deploy the systems, we do the planning, we map the processes that will be delivered, and we do the project plan, team enablement. Also, the racing matrix is very important to define which are the roles and responsibilities for each one of the players inside the project. So this can be a very important deliverable since the beginning of the project. Then we do the kickoff and move to the next phase, the explore phase, where we have the workshops to discuss the process in detail. We have the final process list, we do initial master data uploads, and the documentation for each one of the process that will be delivered. Also, baseline configuration gap list and impacts. We configure the processes, the baseline, and also here we have one example of our two-pager, which defines the business process. On the realize phase, basically, we have the final process list. We do the control of the activities, very detailed way, or using different tools for that based on the agreement that we go together. We document the tests. So we have not only the two-pager documents, but we also have the test documentation, which is very important because it will be used later in the project to train the end users. This documentation is also very important. We plan the execution based on sprints using still the agile methodology. This is also fine-tuned for the reality of the customer. We do the user acceptance tests, gap implementation, and address all the change management impacts. And then we go to the deploy. Once we build the solution, once we test, then we go to deploy. We do the end user training, IT knowledge transfer sessions. We do the preparation of the support structure, the hypercare support as well. Then we do business cutover, technical go live. Then the solution is ready to be used on the production system, and we start the hypercare support. We have also a strong structure defined for the project on how we do the hypercare. This is just a model to show you about this. And then we finish basically the project. After the deploy, we start running the project on the daily basis, and then we have to do the handover for the support team. Of course, we can also provide a contract for the support activities. We have a support structure and a support governance. Basically, that's it in terms of methodology. Also, just to wrap up the project management side, we have many deliverables that we can tailor, that we can discuss over the beginning of the project, how to make the control of this project the most effectively possible. So we have our last question here. Which kind of warehouse automation do you have in the warehouse today? Thanks so much for your answers. So we can see that some kind of automation is already in place for most of the participants. Thanks for the reply. And then we can move on with the last part of the presentation. We are some minutes delayed, sorry for that, but let's try to catch up. So in terms of projects done, just talking about WM to EWM migration in the last 4 years, we have already around 20 projects done for a very good set of customers like BASF, DAV, Class, and Freudenberg. So this alone, so here we are just talking about WM to EWM migrations. Of course, we have many other different projects running, like full implementations from scratch for customers who still don't have WM, also migrations from EWM 9.5 to EWM S/4HANA. So these are not considered here in this number. Here we have only WM to EWM, which is basically the topic that we have discussed today. So we are more than ready to help your business, to help your project to move also to EWM, right? And finally, some key takeaways from the project experience that we have. So seize the opportunities to optimize the adoption of SAP standard. So we are already in the project. How can we abandon some of the developments that we have, or how can we be flexible enough to adopt the most of SAP standard? This is very important. Promote a business-oriented project, not only an IT project. So focus on, along with the project, improve the business, optimize the logistics, optimize the business process, because EWM can bring a lot to the table in terms of possibilities to do that. Tailor and craft the roadmap that suits your business. So as we already discussed a lot about this point, it's very important that we sit together, identify the pain points, and create the best strategy for your reality. So every project is different. During the project, do a routine inspection in the solution with the testing, or try to do most of the testing activities, the checkups, stay close to what the consulting business is done, so that you are sure that all the value you expect with the project is going to be delivered on the go live. Properly define all the roles and responsibilities early in the project, so that everyone involved knows what to do, when to do. Right? This is also very important for a smooth project. Cross-process teams communication is essential for a cohesive solution. So let's put everyone together to discuss, especially in the workshop phase, so that everyone understands the impacts of the changes in the solution from one area to another business area. Project documentation is very, very important, and it's not just a bureaucracy. It's instead an asset during and after the project, because it can be a very strong manual for how to use the process, how to increase or how to improve those processes in the future. Empower the key users and team members for taking the decisions effectively. Sometimes we go to the project and the key users doesn't have enough power or enough knowledge to really discuss what has to be discussed and really bring the pain points, the impact and the changes needed to the table. And in the end, data migration is key. It's very important. This is an activity that has to be taken by both sides, both by the customer, also by the consulting. So it's very important to take care since the beginning of the project from take care of the data migration activities. Here are just some takeaways. Of course, we could discuss much more here about that, but nevertheless, they are important points to think about. And then we go to our Q&A session. Do we have some?
Yes, we have some questions. Here the first question. Could you please explain what is the main difference between the two presented project approaches? And why is the LP-powered approach so much faster?
That's a really good question. Basically, the difference here, as I said, we by using LP-powered, we have a full running solution from scratch. So the installation of LP-powered takes basically less than one week. So we can run already LP-powered in the first week of the project after the deployment of the system, after the installation of the EWM system. And then we go already to the workshops showing step by step how to execute the final business process, which is much closer than the business process that we install here on the baseline configuration for the standard approach. Here we install the best practice from SAP, but usually the best practices are more general processes. They are running process, but many times they are not so granular in terms of what we need on the reality of most of our customers. So this knowledge we have over the time, we have already implemented as a ready-to-run process here. So this scope of processes inside LP-powered is much more specific than the best practice from SAP, which are really very important, but this specificity here brings a lot to the table in terms of improving the business discussions on the workshops and accelerating the identification of the gaps that we still have to implement or to adjust in the process here on the implementation of those processes. So this is basically the big difference why we have this big potential of time saving. Of course, many times we still have to discuss a lot, or we still have to change, and so this is why we say potential time savings, because if your operation is so specific, or if you have so many developments that we have to really go deep and discuss them, then of course this potential time saves may not be so big as this case. But in reality, we have done projects moving from WM to EWM in 3-4 months. So this is also a reality, okay?
And another question, does LogiPlus have dedicated maintenance and support services to offer after that? Great.
Yes, we have. So let's reach back to this slide. Here, basically, once we reach the end of the hypercare phase, we can do the handover for this support team. And this support team can be both internal, inside the customer operation, or can be our support team or any other support team. But we do offer a support structure. So we have offices here in Germany and also an office in Romania, which provides only services for support structure. And with that, we have all the governance related to the support itself. Okay, good. So, yeah, last but not least, which would be the next steps? You can ask for us to do a preliminary check on site. So this is free. This is one activity that we do with our utmost pleasure, to go to your site and discuss different possibilities to do the projects with you, show different options and so on. So feel really free to contact us. We also would like to thank you, all of you who participated, to stay with us in this 1 hour and 10 minutes. Sorry again for the delay on that. And thank you again for your participation.